In 1990, that's when political parties' formations were unbanned, and a lot of exiled people came back home. It also happened here in Venda.
The Republic of Venda was one of the 4 nominally independent homelands created by the apartheid regime's divide and rule system. The strategies traced its roots to 1884 Native Location Commission that sought to place Africans in certain areas.
The objective thereof, in terms of what one has discovered in history, was to preserve different languages in different areas within the Republic, within South Africa at the time.
The Republic of Venda obtained its independence in September 1979 under the then President Patrick Mpepu. Mpepu died in 1988 in Pretoria and was succeeded by Deputy Frank Ravere. After South Africa's President F.W. de Klerk announced the release of Nelson Mandela from Robben Island and the unbanning of political parties in 1990, Ravere's administration faced a constant string of protests from the public. With pressure mounting for Ravere and his administration to step down, he announced his resignation on the 5th of May 1990. The chief of Venda Defence Force, Colonel Gabriel Ramshwana, took over power the following day.
Around 1991, Ravere then issued a 3-line statement which we received in the newsrooms, because we also changed our style of reporting, although it was under the then government, but we were very semi-independent because they wanted to look like Radio Bob and all the other formations within the homelands. The events in the then Ciskei and Transkei were a prelude to what would happen in this part, which was called Venda.
We organize consumer boycotts. We organized the traditional leaders and which led towards the formations of Contralesa, the unions, which led to the unionizing of the workers and the formation of COSATU, affiliated structures. We organized educators to unionize themselves.
Ramshwana was viewed by many political activists and underground operatives as a stooge of the apartheid regime that could not be trusted. Knowing this attitude towards him, Ramshwana attempted to win the trust of activists who were boldly surging forward with the call for a new South Africa.
Ramshwana, we never trusted him, but he knew that we don't trust him, and he wanted us to be trusted. Us to trust him. We remember while he was going to constitute his cabinet, he looked for comrades. How are you going to do this? How do you are you going to accept me? Not knowing that Ramshwana has been communicating with the ANC.
The Republic of Venda bordered another homeland to the east in the self-governing territory Gazankulu, designated for Vatsonga people. Gazankulu achieved its self-governing status in 1973 with Professor Hassan Tsangwis as its first chief minister. Known for his prolific writing skill, the former clergyman presided over some of the most impressive infrastructural development projects in Gazankulu. Like other Bantustan leaders, Tsangwis also faced unswerving political resistance until his death in March 1993. Samuel Nxumalo took over the homeland until its integration into the new South Africa in April 1994.
Around Gazankulu, there were a number of political activities which took place before the advent of democracy, which was led by the African National Congress. What then happened was that the ANC at the time requested civil servants to boycott the Bantustan administration by not going to work, to an extent that the chief minister, H.W. Tsangwis at the time, flew throughout Gazankulu requesting civil servants and members of the then Gazankulu state to cooperate.
The self-governing homeland of Leboa was the largest of the then Transvaal homelands, both territorially and in population. By virtue of its sprawling nature and the size of its citizenry, the territory was a nightmare for the authorities to manage during the persistent defiance campaigns of the early 90s. The Sekhukhune area became the prime base for the defiance, with the youth, labor and civic organization at the center of the protests that eventually spread all over the territory. Chief Minister Cedric Mpatudi and his successor Nelson Ramudige were kept on their toes for over a decade as the heat kept intensifying.
My involvement in the struggle in the politics of South Africa, especially around the then Northern Transvaal, now Limpopo, started when I was a student at the University of Limpopo. At that time it was called the University of the North. I was part of the Azanian student organization, which was more aligned to the ANC, to the UDF. At TEFLOP, during our discussions, and in line with the instructions that we were getting from ANC leadership in exile. Those instructions were to the effect that we must do everything within our power to intensify the struggle.
Nelson, when the organizations were unbanned, decided that he was going to play along with the ANC. So he started causing up to the ANC, but also strengthening his own party so that when they go to the negotiations, he should be going there with a strong party.
In 1988, I was at that time in prison with Thabo Magunyane and other leaders, Elegant Chavele and others. Ramudige had to go out publicly to say he demands the release from prison of myself and Thabo Magunyane and obviously others. Why? Because the pressure was just too much.
Some leaders left a striking legacy behind. Huge architectural structures and statues of the leaders still stand sentinel in public spaces, except in Guyana. Just like colonial and apartheid leaders, their legacies are still subject to varied public opinion.
There was a time when the youth activists, the youth around here, who were then belonging to SEICO, had planned to graffiti that statue. But because here, the area here, even here where we are today, was heavily guarded, it was not easy to gain entrance.
This infrastructure is infrastructure of the South African public. The same way that people don't ask any question about Mandela going into the parliament of the apartheid regime in Cape Town and being sworn in, and everybody going there and using those things as part of the new way of life.
Some of the Bantustan leaders went on to become members of the first Parliament of Democratic South Africa. Rutendo Bobori, SABC News in Polokwane.